if our team is right and listening, because I love what you have to say in regards to script. So tell me, what is the motivation? How do you find the motivation? What is your script that you say?
Great. So that's an unbelievably good question, right? That's a really, really, really good question, because that is the game. If you understand someone's motivation, then everything you talk about after that, you can always go back to that motivation, engage that motivation, and understand, okay, are they ready to make that move, whether it's a buyer or a seller? That doesn't matter, right? That motivation is important.
This is going to be awesome. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy. Today is going all about Gus and about his company. Don't know if we're live on Facebook yet, but if we are not, we will be soon. So I want to take a minute out to introduce our amazing speaker today, amazing guest. Welcome, Gus. You're always here he's my good friend too, by the way, you guys. But please tell the city and state you guys are from. I would love to know in the chat group. We've got quite a few here, so please in the chat group, let us know where you're from, city and state, and we can dive right into this. So a little bit about my friend Gus. Jake, I'm thinking about looking at Jake's name here.
Jake is here. He's around here somewhere. He's a great guy too.
Well, Gus is owner and CEO for PowerISA. I have used them. They are awesome. They get trained ISAs and they're really, really good. So Gus, today we're talking about sellers, right? And I would love to get some tidbits from you about sellers in this crazy market that we're in. So take it away. Talk to us about prospecting for sellers in the shifting market.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great topic. I get asked about this all the time. People, whether you have an ISA or you're doing this on your own, the prospecting that people love to do is prospecting for listings, prospecting for sellers. I mean, that's a really, really hot topic, especially right now. And I'll go into that. Why right now is an interesting time to do this, right? But I want to go kind of hit the topic head on. Prospecting for sellers in a shifting market. Gus, does that mean that we're in a big market shift right now? Well, I mean two things when I say that. I mean two different things. Number one, a lot of markets are going through a seasonal shift right now, right? November, December, January, we normally see transactions dip a little bit compared to the really crazy summer and fall months. A lot of markets are just naturally going to see a decrease in transactions. That's one kind of shift I mean, kind of switching gears. But something really interesting happens, Yankee, when we come from such a hot summer month that were like just off the rails this year for most markets. It was just crazy. Something interesting happens when we hit the normal seasonal shift that we see every single year. People get kind of crazy. That's kind of what happens, right? We're like, oh no, the bull market's over. This is the end. This is crazy. Folks, I'm here to tell you there's a seasonal shift that happens every single year, but sometimes the sellers, they don't figure that out, right? They don't get that message, they don't understand. They're concerned. And the agents that are working every day with sellers, you know exactly what I mean. Hey, my neighbor's home sold in 3 hours back in July. Why is mine taking a whole week to sell right now in the winter? That can be something perfectly normal. And here's another thing to understand. The other kind of shift we can be talking about is a broader market shift, right? When we go from a hyper crazy seller's market to maybe a more normal seller's market, or even
exactly
all the way potentially to a buyer's market. I am not here to tell you guys if that kind of a shift is underway in some markets, in all markets. The reality is we will know for certain 6 months from now whether we're going through a larger, broader market shift. So I tell folks, focus on what is in front of you, focus on what you're seeing in the marketplace right now. And this is what I mean. Is your typical days on market increasing? That is normal. That's happening in a lot of these markets. Focus on that. Another thing you should look out for sale by owners, folks. Yes, everyone hates for sale by owners. They're the worst. They're terrible. They've been impossible to work with these last few years. I understand. We call them every single day for our clients. I totally understand this. But are their days on market increasing as well? They are the canaries in the coal mine for a lot of these changes, a lot of these shifts.
Or even
Yeah, go Yankee.
Sorry, even off-market listings, right? Off-market, a lot of people don't want to stage their home. They don't want to beautify their home. Look for those also. There's some good websites out there, like and I think you have to qualify for this, maybe, I'm not sure, but Top Agent Network, one of the ones that I'm a part of, it does say, hey, here's an off-market, this is what the seller wants to do. And that's an off-market deal. You can certainly, if you've got the buyers, you can certainly, work that. But interesting that you said we're in a seasonal shift. And I love that, because this is a normal shift. I mean, this is not something that is out of the ordinary, although summer was crazy, Gus, this year. And especially, like, perfect example, us, we were so busy in the summer, and we're still busy, but we're preparing for the spring market. So that's what I want. I want our message to be out there, that if you are not preparing for the spring market, you're not preparing your buyers or your sellers for the spring market, what is it that you're actually doing, right? So your ISA should be dialing for the spring market, getting ready. So tell us a little bit more about that. How and what kind of scripts do you use for the shifting market, Gus?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's a great question. That's definitely something I want to get into, because as we have the seasonal shift, you're absolutely right, Yankee. Some of these folks are kind of sitting down and they're waiting for the things to pick up, and they're preparing for the early spring market. In some of these areas, they're preparing for January, February. In my market, Seattle, some of our busiest months of the year were January and February, because folks, they knew the spring was the high season, so they wanted to get ahead of the game. So that start of the season in Seattle would move down to February and sometimes even January. So some of these folks are preparing for next year. And one of the best things to do is to check in with your leads at the beginning of the year, which means in 10 days from now, this is happening now, folks, 10 days from now, you, your agents, your ISAs, your admin, everyone, all hands on deck, you should be going through your entire pipeline, checking in with them for 2022. And I'm even counting in that list should be your old internet leads you got in 2021. Everybody should get a call saying, hey, we got your inquiry from last year. I just wanted to check in. Did you end up buying a home yet? Oh, interesting. Are you thinking of buying a home in 2022? We got a CMA request from you. Did you end up selling your home? Oh, that's really interesting. Are you ready to sell in 2022? So you're just checking in. It's a very simple script, a very simple question you want to ask. You want to check in with your entire database. Start with those hottest leads first and work your way down.
And something I also teach my ISAs, Gus, is that call in 6 months ago who said that they were looking to buy now, or they're looking to buy in early January. Call those leads and say, hey, happy holidays. And I am hoping that you guys have those people on your smart plans or drip campaigns, or even your safe searches on your website, through your CRM. And they're coming back to visit. We've got a lot of people who are coming back to visit, and our CRM gives us that data. But then those are the people you call, and what do you really say? Exactly what Gus just said. PowerISA, amazing place to learn all this info. I love it. And just a shout out to you guys. PowerISA is offering a special deal exclusively for LCA members, you guys, $100 off per month for your dedicated ISA plans, right, Gus? And then $500 off. Wow, that's awesome. $500 off for your new build, your ISA program. This is just really awesome, because I really, I know PowerISA, I've used them before. So this is really good. And again, you guys, this webinar is being recorded, just FYI. So Gus, give us some more tidbits, give us some more scripts. What are the other things that you're saying to these leads?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying earlier, you want to look for those canaries in the coal mine. If you're seeing those days on market increase, you're seeing a lot of sellers trying to kind of hitting the brakes on some of those. The listings are moving within hours during the summer. They might be taking more days, might be taking more weeks during the winter. That is an opportunity, folks. That is an opportunity. And one of the big opportunities I see right now is for those for sell by owners. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks are, they're kind of allergic to them. They don't want to talk to them. Folks, you don't want to talk to those for sell by owners that are not going to list with an agent ever. I'm not talking about those folks. I'm talking about the ones that are not selling in the first weekend in the market, like they saw their neighbors sell. I'm talking about those folks that didn't sell within an hour, within a week, within 2 weeks. You want to be reaching out to them. You want to be reaching out to them because in a shifting market, even if it's only a seasonal shift, they are going to be disappointed. They are going to be frustrated. They don't know about these seasonal shifts. No one's educating the FSBO. They have no idea what's going on. Why is it my home, why didn't it sell within the first hour, within the first weekend, within the first week? I was just talking to a client yesterday that's running a FSBO campaign in Chicago. This is not a small market. It's a pretty large, this is not a minor data point somewhere in the middle of the country. This is a major, major market. They get 3 to 4 for sale by owners per day. I think he's on one of the suburbs, south suburbs of Chicago.
Wow.
3 to 4 for sale by owners every single day, brand new. And he's saying that he's listing 1 or 2 of these every single month. But there's a catch here, guys. It takes some work. He's saying that it takes on average, 16 touches, 16 attempts. That's 16 attempts and 6 weeks of trying. 16 attempts and 6 weeks of trying to convert these FSBOs. He's getting a couple every single month. And his ISA, I mean, this is where the leverage comes in. If you don't have any listings, if you don't have any buy, well, you got plenty of time. Make those calls. But if you're in a market like Chicago, where you're going to get 3 of these, 4 of these every single day, those follow-ups add up, right? So he's adding an ISA to help them with those follow-ups to get in touch. Because he told me one of the listings he took last month, the guy didn't pick up until attempt number 15. He had not picked up the phone or answered the text until number 15, and the 15th was just to have him, invite him over to sign the document. That was it. So the FSBO had lost, they were defeated, they had lost hope. The only agent following up with him the second month was my client, and he got that listing. He basically invited him into his home to list the property, right?
And that's folks, what it takes. That's what it takes, Gus. You got to continue to dial. Exactly. Showing up, doing the task. And, I have to give a shout out to my ISAs. I really love them because they're right on point with these phone calls. I mean, they keep trying. You can't just give up after 2 or 3 tries, right, Gus? I mean, you got to continue, whether it's a FSBO, because we know we don't have FSBOs here in this area in Northern California, but whether it's a FSBO or not, it's a lead. And whichever type of lead it is, it doesn't matter. You got to continuously call. I love what you said, 16 attempts, 6 weeks trying, and finally he picked up. 6 weeks of trying, that's over a month, you guys. And so you got to continue doing this is what we call consistency in our business, don't we?
100%.
Exactly.
Making the call, making the attempt. Remember the scenario we're talking about for sell by owners. They're doing this on their own because it's so easy, isn't it? It's homes sell themselves. You're looking for the FSBOs that didn't sell on their own. There's something wrong. They have to do something differently to get their home sold. If the motivation is there, you need to be calling them. You need to be texting them. If these are in your area, you can drop off some materials, some tips, some listing presentation, something printed for them to take a look at. That's going to set you apart. But my client literally converted this FSBO just with the phone call, and literally that last call was just to invite him in and have him sign that listing agreement. So folks, if you have for sale by owners in your market, and they are more, and they're staying on the market longer, which a lot of them are right now, that is my first tip for prospecting for sellers in a shifting market. The FSBOs, they don't know about these shifts. They don't know what's going on. They just know their home isn't selling. It is a great opportunity for you to sit down with them, educate them, follow up with them, tell them what they need to do to get their home sold. Because if the motivation is there, they're going to become a listing for you. That's one big area of prospecting for sellers in this market right now.
Okay, so we're talking about FSBOs right now. Let's shift gears and talk about the leads that you receive, the leads, whether it's a seller or a buyer. Where do you find the motivation? What is your script? Because I think this will serve purpose to everyone that is watching here, listening. What is that one script that you use that you really get them motivated? I know what I use, but I want to see if our team is right in listening, because I love what you have to say in regards to scripts. So tell me, what is the motivation? How do you find the motivation? What is your script that you say?
Great. So that's an unbelievably good question, right? That's a really, really good question, because that is the game. If you understand someone's motivation, then everything you talk about after that, you can always go back to that motivation, engage that motivation, and understand, okay, are they ready to make that move, whether it's a buyer or a seller? That doesn't matter, right? That motivation is important. Sometimes, and on some of these calls, some of these situations, it can be as easy as asking, well, what's driving your move? Why are you looking to make that move, right? That's the easy case. That's unbelievably simple. If they're willing to answer that question, that's great. Folks, we're recording this at the end of 2021, right? It's not that easy. Let me just tell you that. It's not that easy. One of the key ways to make sure that someone's, number one, even answering your questions, and number two, answering them truthfully, Yankee. Let's be honest, right?
Yes.
People might not have any motivation to talk about their timeline, to talk about their motivation. They don't want to tell you that. Why would they tell you this? What's the reason? Why?
Right.
I don't even know who Yankee is. I don't know who Gus is. Why am I going to share them some of my hard-earned time to actually be on the phone with them, or even respond to their text message and share anything that I want with them? So that's a challenge that we all face, whether it's marketing leads, prospecting leads, it doesn't matter. When you're in a conversation, how do you get them to even give you the time of day, and how do you get them to try and answer truthfully? So there's two things that we use to try and bridge that gap. Number one, you've got to try and build some rapport as fast as possible with the leads, right? You've got to try and build some rapport. How do you do that, right? Well, number one, this is a big mistake I see a lot of folks make on the phone, is that you've got to be able to listen to what they're saying. I know that sounds very obvious. It is a phone call, folks. This is the number one mistake I see when I listen to agents, new ISAs. They're talking over the other person. They're not listening. They're trying to get to the next question on the script. They're trying to get to the next line on that script. Shut up and listen. Listen to what they're saying, right? Sometimes people just want to vent. Oh, I'm getting all these calls today. If it's a seller, I'm getting all these calls today. You know, you're bothering me. Whether it's an expired or a FSBO, that's a really common complaint, right? Don't get defensive. Oh, I hate it when that happens. I mean, have empathy for what they're going through. Listen to what they're saying. They're trying to express frustration. Folks, the easiest thing for the lead to do is to hang up on you, right? Mm-hmm. If they're not hanging up on you, they want something from the interaction.
Exactly.
And many times, it's just to have someone listen to them. Show them empathy. Do active listening. That's one of the things we try to evaluate for all of our ISAs, is any conversation. Are you active listening? Are you validating what the lead is saying? You don't have to agree, folks. They're saying, oh, these agents, they do nothing. Hey, I understand your frustration with all these agents calling you. That's not agreeing with them. The agents are worth or whatever. You're validating their feelings. That's what active listening is about. Validate their feelings, show empathy with what they're going through. If it's a buyer that's frustrated with these bidding wars, that's frustrated with the seller's market, show empathy with that, right? It's a very stressful time for a lot of buyers. If they're a first-time home buyer, they're feeling the pressure of the pricing, inflation, potentially interest rates going up next year. They're under a lot of stress, folks. So if you show empathy and you're listening to what they're saying, it can go a long way into even having them talk to you and share some of those more truthful answers. That's one thing. The other thing is you've got to come with value.
Yes.
You've got to be giving them something.
So that's what I was going to say. Something. That's exactly what I was going to say, is come from contribution. When you are
100%.
Offer them something, not obviously tangible, because obviously you're on the phone with them, but offer them something of validity. Offer them something like, hey, we have this information for you, but out of curiosity, tell me, when are you looking, or are you, or whatever the question is, come from giving them information, like give, then try to receive back, right?
Yeah, 100%. Listening to them, asking how is it going, where are they at in their home search, where are they at in the process of potentially selling their home. If they're inquiring about a CMA, you have no idea why they're inquiring about the CMA. Just be honest with that. They might be just curious. They might be thinking of refinancing. They might be thinking of selling now, selling a year from now, selling 6 months from now. You have no idea. Mm-hmm. But the only thing I can tell you, if it is not likely to work very well, is to ask them, when do they want to sell their home? Exactly. Folks, ask about their situation. And sometimes a great question I love is, great, tell me about your situation, and shut up and see what they say.
Yeah.
Learn about their motive. That's how you get to motivation, Yancy. I'm learning about them and what they're going through and what do they want, right? Because a motivated buyer or seller is going to ask very specific questions. The more specific they get, the better, right? The more precise they get, even with their objections. Oh, I can't sell right now, Jan, because I need to wait for my kids to get out of school. Okay, that is a really specific time frame.
Right.
Very specific. I love that answer, by the way.
I do too.
I need to wait for something to happen. I need to wait for this activity to occur. I need to wait for my other home in another state to sell first. Those, I mean, and again, they might be 6 months out, right? But there's a very specific time frame that I can work with that.
Right. And I love the fact that they give you that time frame, because then you can say, okay, I will be more than happy to give you a call back in 6 months. How does that sound? I mean, I always tell my ISAs, end it with how does that sound? So that makes them feel like you're listening to them and you built that rapport with them. And the same ISA should follow up with them, because then they know, oh, Mariah called, oh, Laura called, or this one called, whoever it is, they will associate the name and know who it is, right? So I think that, and again, if you're joining us a little bit late, that's okay. But we're talking about the seasonal shift. We're talking about shifting in a seller's market. How can we help those sellers? How can we help those leads that have come up? And basically, like you said, first 16 attempts, 6 weeks trying. Second, motivation. Why? Why did they even click on your website? Why did they even register? That tells me a lot. They registered because they want some more information. So we build rapport, right? You build that connection. And then you said, come from contribution, basically give them something. What more can you tell us, Gus?
Yeah, and I want to go a little bit deeper into that. Come from contribution, that can be offering them your off-market property list. That could be offering them or telling them about your VIP buyer program. What is that? Google it, make one, make a great VIP buyer program, make that sound awesome. That includes my free class, that includes, a consultation with our loan officer. It includes all the, what you can qualify. It includes how many things. It can include bottled waters on the tours. Guys, make a VIP buyer program, because that's going to be a huge value add. Oh, every other agent in the market, they don't have that. I offer a VIP buyer program. They don't, I do.
Proposition, right? Your value proposition. What are you doing
100%.
differently from another agent? I love that. Okay, go on.
Another great value add is a system that one of our clients is using. Their proven system to help you win a bidding war, right? And again, this is something you can come up with from your own experience, folks. If we put our best foot forward, this gives us a great chance of winning this property, right? What are those steps? What are those experiences? What are those stories, right? Because a lot of folks have anxiety about the situations. A lot of buyers don't even want to interact with the market because they're concerned about bidding wars. They need to be educated. They need to be guided. They need to be led. And you can be that person by creating some of these materials. It can be a PDF. It can be an email for all we know. It can be I love classes. Inviting them to a class where you teach them something is unbelievable. They can be done virtually, folks. Very easy to do. All of these different things can be those value adds that if they're interested in the value add, for me, that is a higher level of motivation, a higher level of qualification for you to understand who that lead is and where they're at. I think that's unbelievably important.
I really, really like that. Two things. Share your proven system, whether it's a buyer or a seller. How are you going to share that proven system? What are you going to share with them? Listen, everybody sends out market updates. Like, hey, I sold 72 homes this year. Hey, I sold this, and this in your neighborhood. But what else are you doing differently, correct? I mean, give them something to say, no, I really want to use this agent. We really talk, and reviews are a big thing here. We talk about our reviews, why we're number one on Yelp, organically growing, because our clients give us those reviews. And I always default back to that. That is your value proposition of what other clients are saying about you, right? So what other tips can you share with us?
Great. So we're talking about the prospecting for those sellers, unbelievably important, folks. Another one, and this is another one of those categories that people can be concerned about. They're nervous about expired listings. Expired listings. Let me I'll say one thing about expired listings, folks. Yes, they've been impossible to work with the last year or two or three or four because there's hardly any of them. I understand that. I get it. And the ones that do expire, well, they're nuts. How can you expire in the hot seller's market? Understood. But understand this. During a seasonal shift, you're going to get a lot of carryover of these sellers that have unrealistic expectations back in September, October, and November, they're already starting to expire during this month. And guess what? We're coming up on the Super Bowl of expired listings, which is January 1st.
Yes.
January 1st, folks. And again, some of them are gonna expire a few days before, some of them a few days later. The smart agents never let them expire the first of the month. They're trying to move around a little bit because nobody calls them on the second day of the month. That's what happens. But I would, if you're looking for listings in this market, if you want to get a slam dunk listing appointment, folks, get a list of expired listings. You can use Red X, which is a partner here with LabCoatAgents. You can use whoever you want. Get those numbers. You have to get them from a third-party provider, guys. Don't get them off the MLS. You can't do that. But get a third party to get you that contact information and give them a call. I did this a couple of years ago, January 1st, to show my ISAs how powerful having volume of expireds was. In a single day, I said, and I can't remember if it was 18 or 19 listing appointments. Not for me. I was in Mexico, right, making these calls. This was for my agents in my office in Seattle. So one day, I didn't even call all day. I probably just called for like half a day, maybe 5 or 6 hours of work total. I said, I think it was probably almost 18, 19 listing appointments in a single day. Why? Because it's like shooting fish in a barrel. That's why, right? You get volume of expireds. Yes, and trust me, those are not the expireds that, that you're going to get everything, right? You're going to get everything. The folks that are very realistic, the ones that are very unrealistic, they need to be educated. You need to tell them how they can sell their home. I need to qualify them for motivation. Because in this market, if their property looks good and they just have unrealistic expectations, they need to talk to you so you can tell them what they need, lead them, and tell them what they need to do to get their home sold, right? That is a great. But this is the best time of the year, to try and call some of those expired listings. Folks, I promise you, I did this without any practice, by the way. When I did this, I did not call expired listings every day, every week, every month. I did not, right? I went with the boilerplate, hey, just helping you see if I can get your home sold, right? Some of them, all the stereotypes come up. They didn't even know their home had expired. They had no idea. Some of them were just completely misinformed. Some of them knew, some of them did not. Folks, it's open season with them. You can have that conversation, and it's going to be like shooting fish in a barrel. In some markets, more than others, for sure. But we're already seeing this happen in December. I can only expect we're going to see more during January because this seasonal shift has been so severe in some of these markets where, yeah, it didn't sell in an hour. And yeah, we didn't see 3% price increases month over month all year. We didn't see that. So it's your opportunity to start a conversation with expired listings, to gauge their motivation, and go in and tell them what you can do that their other agent didn't do to get their home sold. You're never going to find a time of year where it's as easy to have a conversation with an expired listing than in the next 10 days. I guarantee that's going to be the case. So folks, if you haven't tried expired listings, give them a try. If you've tried them, you know what I'm talking about, right? The Super Bowl expired listing is happening. It's going to be happening in 10 days. You decide whether you want to take advantage of that or not. It's going to be an unbelievably good opportunity. And here's another thing. Even if you don't go like Gus and set 19 listing appointments, because I was calling a whole county, by the way. I wasn't calling my city. I was calling other cities around me. I didn't stop. I kept going. And because I referred all of those listing appointments out to agents that I knew. But even if you don't get the listing appointment that day, like I said with the FSBOs, you're starting the relationship. You're talking to someone. You're having a two-way conversation because some of those sellers legitimately are not ready to relist in that moment. The majority of them are that case, actually, right? So most of them are not ready to relist right away. That's fine. You can start the conversation, follow up with them. So when they are ready to list, holy cow, Gus has reached out to me like 5 times this month, giving me value, helping me on this journey. And what's my other agent done? Nothing, right? Let me think about that, right? You want to put yourself in that, you want to force that comparison, right? Do not shy away from comparing yourself to other agents. Do it in a respectful, professional manner. Show them what you can do for them.
Right. And you're building basically the rapport. That's the main thing. You're building the rapport, giving them something. I usually give them a one-page CMA. We email it over to them if that's the case. And we give them something as a takeaway so they know that when it's time, who do they call, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So I tell you, it's an activity, your hourly rate on that activity that day is in the thousands of dollars, right? Every hour spent prospecting. It's January 1st. Some people might have partied too hard the day before, maybe not. But if you're in it to win it, that is a great day to do it. And guess what? So is January 2nd, and so is January 3rd, and so is January 4th. So I don't want to hear any excuses. Oh, I didn't get up on Sunday morning. Well, Saturday morning. Well, don't get up on Saturday morning, but call them on Monday morning. At least give it a shot, right? See which ones are still waiting to be contacted, who didn't pick up their phone. I mean, folks, the point is, give it a shot, give it a try. There's no better time in the whole year to do it than the next couple of weeks.
I totally agree with you. And also, in California, we do not have FSBOs. That's just, here, at least in our area, we don't have FSBOs. However, we can look, if you don't have FSBOs in your area, I would strongly suggest looking at expireds. If you don't have expireds, go out there and give information to your farming area, to your neighborhood farming area, whether it's, hey, happy holidays, drop it off, whatever it might be. You don't have to see face to face if COVID is a restriction. There's so many ways to get these leads or get your face or your name out there. So we've got quite a few tips here. Anything else we need to add, Gus?
Yes, because I thought of that, Yankee, because maybe during the market, let's say one of those markets, very hot market, still a hot seller's market, even in the winter, it doesn't really matter. And you don't have a bunch of FSBOs coming on every day. Let's say you don't have volume of expireds coming up soon or in your market right now. Well, Gus, now what do I do to prospect for sellers? Well, I have another suggestion for you, right? This is a big category of potential sellers, one that I don't feel is followed up with enough, and that is everything to do with landlords. Landlords that are living in the area, absentee landlords, and there's one single reason for that, Yankee. Folks, it has been a tough year to be a landlord. I can say that as a landlord myself. I still have rental properties in Seattle. It has been a tough year. Well, particularly Seattle's a little bit off the rails, but everywhere in the country it's been difficult, right? Because of the eviction moratoriums, because of the restrictions, because of all the things that happened during the pandemic. I understand. I'm not here to say whether they're good or bad. I'm just here to say, as a landlord, it's been very, very difficult, right? A lot of folks have had their worst year landlording ever in the last 12 to 18 months. Absolutely. So trust me when I tell you, you might just have to have the right conversation with the right person for them to want to unload this. I had a client, and this client is in a market that's greatly affected by COVID. This is New York City. Mm-hmm. They are unbelievably busy talking to people that don't want to be landlords in New York City right now because of all the situations they've gone through. You know what? They want to get rid of that property, and no one is calling them. No one is calling them, right? So folks that have properties up for rent, folks that are absentee landlords. This is a really interesting system. This is something that if I were in production right now, I would absolutely do this in my market. In that area of New York City, they keep track of all the listings that come up on the market, right? They track every single, in their area, they're in Brooklyn, in that area, they track all the different rentals that go on the market, and to make sure, because even if they get rented, let's say they get a tenant, they follow up with that owner 8 or 9 months down the line, because that lease is going to renew, right? And that is always a golden opportunity to try and get that listing. If that was a great tenant, great, that's awesome, good luck with that. If that was an unbelievably terrible tenant, which can happen, that is the best time ever to try and get that listing appointment, even if it's an absentee owner. It doesn't matter, folks, right? If you talk to a landlord at the right time, the right day, right moment, that is the easiest listing you're ever going to get. And it can be in a very desirable area. It's just that their personal situation changed and they no longer want to be a landlord, particularly if it's an absentee landlord.
I totally agree with you, because this, like you said, it's been a very tough year and has been very difficult for landlords. And as landlords, we know that how much there is that we have to listen to the tenancy laws, and we have to agree to tenancy laws, right?
It's not a choice. It's not a choice. We have to go through this. It happened. I had one of my tenants, trash the place. I couldn't even charge a security deposit. It was that restricted, right? And I understand it. I get it. And people have gone through a really tough situation. So I'm not going to criticize folks that had to do what they had to do. As a landlord, that can be a really challenging situation as well. And as a landlord, you've got two options. You kind of power through and take the loss and keep going, or you really want to unload that property and do something different in this market, right? So those are the ones you want to talk to.
Yeah, and Gus, here's a question from Heidi. She says, how do you get landlords over the hump of capital gain taxes?
So how do you get land? Okay, so that's a really good question. So that's like a kind of very specific situation by situation, because capital gains depend on how long you've been holding the property, et cetera, et cetera. Every single person's individual tax situation is going to be different, right? For some people, selling a property and taking that hit on, maybe it's a 10, 15% hit on capital gains. For some people, it'll be higher than that, right? So I don't want to really get into the specifics. I always want to quantify a motivation. Are they ready to sell? If someone's giving me an objection, oh, I don't want to sell because I'm going to pay taxes. Well, everyone's going to sell and they're going to pay taxes, right? There's nothing unique about that situation. I would try and focus on what their motivation is. Because if their motivation is strong enough, then you can get past some of these objections. That's one approach. The other one is help them answer the question. Get a professional to answer that question. You know what? That's a great question. Let me get my tax advisor here on the phone. Let me get a meeting, a Zoom call with my tax specialist, and they can answer that question with more authority. That is a really, really, really situation by situation question. But anytime you sell a property, unless it's a 31 exchange, that might be a great option, by the way. 1031 exchange it into another property, into another asset, right? So I'm not a tax expert. I don't want to give tax advice, but get a tax expert to answer that question and give them options. Give them options and make sure that one of those options is what they can do to sell that property and get out of that landlording situation. I think that's a great option for them.
I think so too. I think a couple of things, Heidi, is I would recommend them to their own CPA. I would recommend them to, if they can't get a hold of their CPA, give them your CPA's number, information. That's another way to be of service to them, or to give them, hey, listen, I'll get that information for you. In the meantime, here's their information, is what I say. And of course, at that point, you will kind of understand what is their big why, or what is their motivation to really sell, right? Can they do a 1031 exchange if it is a rental property? I mean, we can get into that, but that's not what this is for. So hopefully we have answered your question, Heidi. So Gus, I think we've got some great scripts here. Our ISA should be dialing. Motivation is there. Days on the market increasing for some people here in this area. We're not increasing, but they're, like you said, 16 attempts, 6 weeks, try and continue building that rapport, find out the motivation, find out, build a rapport, find out the motivation and come from contribution. I think those are great topics and takeaways from you. Thank you so much, Gus. I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but do you have any last minute words to say or to share?
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I want to say is specifically for the out-of-state landlords in that situation, do not shy away from calling them. Do not shy away from texting them, folks. That is unbelievably important. I was talking to a client. Their ISA was mainly focused on Facebook leads because that's the biggest part of their business. But they were sending, I think they have something like 500 or 600 absentee owners in their database that they were sending them postcards. And they go, why aren't you calling these folks? I'm like, oh, you know what? They thought that the postcards were enough. Like, of course it's not enough. Like that, that's not. It's like saying you want to send postcards to your Facebook leads. Sending postcards to Facebook leads is going to be enough. That's not enough. A
quick question. Let's tell our listeners or our people who are watching us, where can you get those lists from out of state landlords?
That's a really good question. There's all different providers can provide these. Everything from even like Mojo Dialer, RedX, Landvoice. They can provide specific lists with phone numbers, and without phone numbers, you can get these just from your title office, right? I tell them, generate a list of property owners where the mailing address is different than the property address. As simple as that. That will generate every single, and you'll get absentee owners that are still living in your same state, your same city, by the way, right? You'll get many. You can specifically ask for.
And you get the people that are probably going to be the most motivated. So it's as simple as asking your title office to generate that list, but you don't just want the address, because that's the easiest thing to get. You get their mailing address outside of the state. Folks, get the phone number. get their phone number. And that's when you use some services like RedX, LandVoice, Mojo. There's Vulcan 7. A lot of them can generate out-of-state property owners. Those are great, or they can at least help you match them up with phone numbers because you want to touch them any single way you can. And a really simple text message to send them is, hey, is this the owner of 123 Main Street?
Exactly.
Just start the two-way conversation and kind of see where they're at. The most important thing with an absentee property owner or any landlord in general is you want to gauge the mortgage. They might be perfectly happy being a landlord. That's great. God bless them. That's awesome. You want to talk to the person. And this is, I don't want to make this sound, complicated, but that's very obvious when they're not happy being a landlord. It is unbelievably obvious when they don't want to be there. They're really upset about their last tenant. They're really upset about the legislation. They're really upset about everything, right? So that it's very obvious to find these folks. Listen to them,
Right.
empathy to their situation, and
Right.
give them options. One of those options is to list the property, put it on the market, and be done with it.
There you go. We've got quite a few things to get done before the end of this year to get started for the next year, especially when it comes to listings and working with sellers. So thank you, Gus. It's always a pleasure. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I know I'm going to see you next year. Let's see you in 2022. Until then, have a safe and fun holiday season.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Really
Talk to you
appreciate it.
soon. Bye.
End of 2021.
Thank you. Bye-bye.